Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Peter Llewellyn, and I run the services at MedComms and the associated websites, so information, resources, and so on for people who work in and around medical communications, medical education, medical publishing, and the associated businesses across the globe. So I'm having a bit of fun at the moment talking to people around the world, across the business, about their personal stories, their MedCom stories, as it were. So today I'm joined by Mariane, who's over in the US. So Mariane, I'm not going to steal your thunder. You tell me who you are and where you are, and then I'd like to hear a bit about your personal story in MedCom. So over to you.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you for having me. So my name is Mariane Quadri. I am based in Connecticut, and I work as a group development director at IPG Health Medical Communications.
Excellent. Okay, right. So let's go back to the beginning, which is I'm always interested how it all starts. So take me back to the beginning. What were you doing at uni, academically? How did you get into MedComs? Right back at the beginning, what happened?
Sure. So I have a scientific training in diabetes and cardiovascular disease. So I completed my PhD at Columbia University at New York. Shortly thereafter, I did a postdoc. But it was around that time, very heavily bench work, scientific work. I realized that wasn't going to be what I wanted to do long term.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I realized I didn't want that traditional route. I needed to understand what else I could do. And that's when I began to seek out other opportunities. And there just so happened to be a conference that was advertised to all grad students, and it's called What You Can Be with a PhD, that just had exposure for all you could do with your degree. I mean, everything from working in the government, the Department of Defense, all the way to industry work. And it was through this conference that I learned about medical communications. So there was a workshop being held by a company that actually had you do what a day act as if you were a day in the life of an agency worker.
Right.
So we got a chance to work on distilling information in a paper to different audiences, and this really interested me, and is how I entered into the MedComms world.
Just simplistically, if you can remember back, I mean, did you know anything about MedComs or medical writing before you went to that conference? It was literally that was the door
Yes,
opening, was it?
I did not know. So this was an eye opener because you don't really think of tailoring information or distilling information down to different audiences, right? We're all used to reading papers, or we come from a background where we understand and digest very heavily scientific papers, but being able to pull out those relevant details and what you want to communicate to HCPs or healthcare practitioners versus a patient is very different. So this workshop that they provided really was a lens into what they did. So I started to research that a little bit more. And there just so happened to be an opportunity at the healthcare consultancy group, which is where I joined entry level shortly after postdoc.
Okay. And you went in, am I right, essentially as a medical writer, a trainee medical writer, yeah?
Yes. So I joined entry level as a medical associate. I was very fortunate to be able to work in the same therapeutic space that I had my training in, which,
Ah,
doesn't
right,
always happen, but I
right.
did happen to work on a very large diabetes account. And from there, just had the opportunity to work in a variety of therapeutic spaces, touched all of the bread and butter of MedComs, advisory board, slide deck development, and worked my way up to VP level. So I was there for about
Okay.
6 years.
Okay. Just thinking back to the medical writing, as it were, just give us a little bit more of a sense of the sort of projects you worked on, and I think a lot of people when they think about medical writing, they somehow assume that they're going to be sat at a desk at a computer and sort of left to get on with it. So just try and explain a little bit more the reality of what life was like as a writer.
Yeah, so it's a very big switch from the lab work that I was used to doing. So in the lab, you're working essentially solo with your cells or your animal models, and you are the one who's responsible for your own timeline. You have your own internal clock. You know when you have to give your presentation, or when your meeting is coming up that you might need to share data. So making that switch into agency life was really about becoming acclimated to working cross-functionally. So now I'm working with, different departments. I'm working with an account services team, with the creative team. So being able to work cross-functionally, completing things like advisory boards or slide deck development, so that we can communicate key points within any therapeutic space. MOD videos, so working creatively. We're very good with the science, but then thinking about how we want to make that science come to life and working with other teams to do so was a big part of my responsibility. So very heavily executional when I first started. And as I climbed up, moved to have folks that I managed so that it became more strategic and helping to make sure that we are pulling through strategic imperatives, our client strategic imperatives through to our deliverables. So you start climbing up and your job description ends up switching from more execution to more oversight.
Okay, and again, just sticking with the medical writing type work, presumably when you first went in, I mean, well, or I'll rephrase that. How much client contact did you have initially, and how did that develop? How did that side of it develop over time?
Yes. So our company was very different. They tried to expose us to clients very early on.
Okay.
So with the right support, being able to review the content that I developed and walk a client through what it is that we did and why we did was something that we were exposed to very early. And I think that's a benefit because, who best to be able to walk somebody else through the content rather than other than you, the one who created it. So I was able to client face very early on. It wasn't without hiccups, right? So it's certainly a learning experience to be able to understand, first level setting. These clients are super busy folks. They're doing a million other things. So we tend to think that a client automatically knows what it is that they're doing because they're the ones who briefed us. But being able to sort of ground the client, letting them know, what the goal was, what the original ask is, and how we approached it was certainly a learning experience for me.
And what about uh, as a medical writer? Um, you come from academia, and you're now in a where I'm guessing you might have written some papers or something, but you were the author, and you're now in a situation where you're contributing, you're supporting other people, and I guess you might be sometimes acknowledged, but you're not the author. You see what I'm getting at? Because again, people look from the outside wonder how they're going to cope with that because they like to have some control over it. Do you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, and I think you still do. Maybe not in the sense of authorship, but you're the one who has a hand in the strategy and into developing the content. So, the world of MedComms and the work that we do is really about the solutions that our clients are asking us to provide, and they're relying on our expertise. So, because of your experience, because of what you've accomplished previously, that's what you're bringing to the client. So you may not have your name on the paper, but you're certainly contributing to a very important piece of material that is going to be used that ultimately impacts patients. So
Equally, I guess you have to accept the fact that somebody else can put a red line through it and say, no, I want to say it like that. So
yes.
again,
Oh yeah.
maybe you develop a thick skin. I suppose that's an
Oh
expression
yeah,
we'd
yeah.
use.
I mean, from your first iteration, it's probably going to go through several more rounds of reviews and iterations, and you have to become comfortable with that. And it's not a pejorative. It doesn't speak negatively on you. It's just in order to get the best possible outcome, there's going to be many stakeholders that are going to be involved in the review, both internally at your agency and also with the clients. And that's also just to make sure it's compliant. So not even just content wise, but we need to make sure that it's actually going to be utilized compliantly. So I think in the world of MedComms, we need to just get comfortable with having those many rounds of reviews, and it's really ultimately to produce the best possible deliverable.
Yeah. And what about you said I think you said when you first went in, you were working in your area of diabetes, and that was an advantage. But you must have then quite quickly been moved into other areas or been faced with different things. How did you find that in terms of the challenge of taking on new therapy areas and so on? Did you get the support? Did you get a bit worried because you didn't know what you're talking about in that particular? I mean, how does that work out in practice?
Yeah. And I think me being able to work in the same therapeutic space is not the norm. You actually jump from therapeutic space to therapeutic space and work in a space that you're
Yeah.
not familiar with. And I think the big part of MedComms, particularly for folks with a background like myself with a PhD, you tend to have you're very used to going very deep into the details. You certainly the mechanism of action all the way down to the minute details. And in MedComms, you sort of have to come out and appreciate the big picture. And so that's another switch in terms of getting acclimated to the work that we do. It's less so about the minute details. They're relevant in order for you to understand how the product works and its effect that it's going to have. But in terms of distilling information down to the most salient points for these audiences that are super busy folks, they don't have time to read extensive pieces. We need to get used to doing that. So it is a challenge initially, but with the support and having your teammates being able to review the content to make sure they're able to understand it is going to be a huge help. So you're not working in silos, and that's the benefit. Nothing is done in silos. You have a support system that's going to help you get that best deliverable.
Okay, and I guess I'm going to put words in your mouth now, but do you enjoy the variety? Is that one of the aspects of working in medcoms you like?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's a challenge. I think you get a chance to expand your portfolio. You get a chance to understand different needs, how different audiences digest different pieces of information, and how you need to tailor content based on those needs. So I think it all, helps with each individual's growth. I think the exposure is fantastic. It's fast paced, and it's certainly something we need to get used to. But again, with that support system, you're never going to be bored.
Excellent. Okay, so we were going so far down your personal journey and then we've stopped. So let's keep going. You're at ACG, you've got to a senior level. So it's much more about strategy and mentoring and training and management at ACG. So just take us on from there. So where did you go after that?
Yeah, so after that, I joined a company under Haymarket Media. So this is PRI Healthcare Solutions. And I joined as the head of the scientific services department. So now I moved from focusing on one very large account. So as I left HCG, I was focused on one very large account. And now I worked across multiple accounts, worked to oversee content development more from a higher level. And participated more in new business opportunities and RFPs. Again, growth in my career. And then after PRI Healthcare Solutions, I was presented with a fantastic opportunity at IPG Health Medical Communications, which was now moving away from client facing. So that's the biggest difference. But I'm using all of this experience that I amassed in my previous positions to help with a training and professional development program, Fuel, and working to expand that across to the commercial side. So all of the work that I did previously is hugely relevant as I start working to create these training programs to help folks and equip them with the resources and the skills that they need to execute their work, essentially what I used to do.
Okay. And so you're now at IPG Health and you've been there a few months, haven't you? So you're relatively new at IPG Health, but looking after these training programs. So just tell us a little bit more about what's involved with that. Then it's a fuel program, isn't it? So just for anyone who doesn't know, just give us some headlines as to how IPG goes about bringing people into the fuel program.
Yeah, so one of the things that really stands out about IPG Health is the enormous amount of investment it has, for everybody, no matter your level. Fuel is specifically geared towards entry level folks. So you can imagine. I mean, when I first started, I had no clue what medical communications was. But even if once I got a little bit of a snippet of what's done, it's still a challenge. Folks are speaking in acronyms. There are abbreviations being used in every other sentence. And I find myself Googling or, trying to figure out what's going on. Not only that, just understanding when folks say, what's an ad board, right? Now that I've been in it for quite some time, it almost seems like it's I know this like the back of my hand. But if you're new to MedCom, some of these terms are very challenging. What we do is challenging. So Fuel is really geared towards entry level, and it really equips folks with the hands-on experience and workshops, formal training and workshops to help them execute their work, their day-to-day work. So all of the resources and the skill sets that you're going to need to be able to execute your work is what Fuel aims to do. And my work is focusing specifically to expand the Fuel program to the commercial side. So making all of those trainings and workshops relevant to the work that's done on the commercial side.
Just help me understand quite what you mean by the commercial side.
So the work, so less med affairs, less publications, but more so executing on the peer-to-peer content and the peer-to-peer slide decks, advisory boards, KOL engagement, key opinion leader engagement is
so
what
by
I
commercial
need.
side, you're sort of referring to the commercial side of the pharma industry Client side,
Correct.
yeah. Like you
Correct.
say, as opposed to the medical affairs type work. I'm with you. Okay, so let's just have a think about that because it's quite interesting, isn't it, to have someone like yourself online. So if people are looking at this and going, "Oh, it sounds like an interesting career," and all the rest of it, you're now in a position where you're training and developing those new people that are coming in. Have you got us just a few tips for anyone that's coming in, or what are you looking for in new people that are coming into MedComms? Can you talk around
Yeah,
that for a
no,
minute?
that's a great point. I think the first thing I would say is really be willing and open to trying everything, right? I think when you're new to something, you tend to have that fear. It's a natural thing. You tend to have a fear, you don't want to touch it, or you're afraid of, messing up, but don't
Right.
just, it's worse if you don't get in there, try new things, experience new things, volunteer for new things, even if you don't know what you're doing, because you'll be amazed at what comes out of it. I think that's the number one thing I would tell individuals is just really have that drive to want to try new things, because the world of medcoms is very much dependent on the individual that's coming in, right? We want your feedback. We want you to come in with your fresh perspectives. We certainly have processes and procedures that are well baked, but you might come in and have an idea that can help strengthen it and make it better. And your feedback and your insights are very much welcomed and appreciated. So we really encourage folks to have that new, fresh way of thinking and to speak up, ask questions.
It's worth saying on that point, and I think you've touched on it earlier on. I mean, someone coming into the business, there's a lot of support around you. So it's not it, you know, everyone's naturally a little bit afraid of doing what you're suggesting, which is pushing the boat out of it. But you're surrounded by people who are supporting you, and you're not just going to be left out to dry.
Absolutely. And I've found that, you might have a question that you're afraid of asking, but I can almost bet there's probably two other people on the call who probably have the same
Think the
question and
same
you could
thing. Yeah,
probably
yeah.
be helping them. So yeah, even if you think it's the silliest question, you need to ask it. I'm very much a proponent and I do this myself. Even today, I still ask the most basic questions, but it helps. It helps.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So, and just out of interest, how much travel's involved in the business these days? And for you personally, you've been around for, I'm losing track of time, but is it 10, 12 years or so, maybe a little bit longer?
Yeah.
So you must have seen things have changed quite a lot over that time. And travel used to be a big thing. How much travel do you do and do the people you're now training do these days?
Yeah, so I think the folks that I'm training for, there's the travel is still opening up. So I've heard people are still doing conferences and congresses and are on site quite a bit as clients are still holding their meetings.
Right.
I think the office site visits, so those in-person client meetings may have changed a little bit, whereas before, it was very common to go into your client's office and have those meetings, whereas now even their requirements for how often they need to go and have changed. So that impacts the on-site with regards to the client meetings. But conferences, congresses, advisory boards, those are happening. But the biggest change is that now we've become hybrid. So it's not just it's to really help with not only making it accessible for the physicians to be able to attend because they might be so busy, but you want to have that key opinion leader attend. He can't physically be there in person, but why not have it be a hybrid meeting where he's able to still provide his insights and other folks are there in person as well. So I think it's just helped with efficiency as well, so that we're
Right.
still
Okay.
able to get what it is that we need efficiently.
And touching on that, I mean, the introduction of technology, development of digital solutions, and so on. I mean, it's changed a lot, hasn't it, over the years? And so
Oh
there's
yeah.
just so much more variety within medcoms because of all that technology and the different platforms and so on.
Absolutely. I mean, I think AI is the biggest one right now. It's in
And that's
everything that
looming.
we
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
It's truly changing how we approach certain things, both internally and with the client. It's happening very quickly. It's happening, and there are changes every day. So I think it's an exciting time for sure.
Exciting. Okay, and on that note, I'm going to say a huge thank you. We should draw the line there, but it's lovely. I love to hearing these stories, and the enthusiasm comes across. And I think if anyone's watching this, though, there's just useful insight into the business and into what you're doing. So thank you so much for spending the time with me. I
Thank
know I
you.
can speak for you and say if anyone's watching this, please, make contact with you. LinkedIn is an easy way of doing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
and
Thank you so much
but
for
as you
having
say,
me.
it's no worries. It was great, and but as you say, it's an exciting time in medcoms. So thank you very much. I'm going to say goodbye. Just give us a little wave, and we'll say goodbye to everybody. Take care. Bye.